After a heartbreaking loss to the Carolina Hurricanes in OT, the New Jersey Devils redeemed themselves against the Seattle Kraken, and it seems like they have some decent momentum going their way at the right time because things in the wild card and also the Metro are starting to get a little tight, so every point matters. And Jack Hughes led the way alongside with Nico Daws. We have a lot to break down in today's episode of Locked On Devils. Buckle up, everybody.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Scores! Oh, Stevens stepped up, nailed it. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is cracking, New Jersey? Welcome. Wait a minute. That's not my intro. What's my intro again? Oh, right. What is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, college hockey play-by-play announcer, Devils writer for Pucks and Pitchforks, and also part-time credential media member, Trey Matthews. Before I break down the game in which the New Jersey Devils came out on the winning end against Seattle Kraken by a score of 3-1, first, some housekeeping. So, unfortunately, I will not be making the trip to MetLife Stadium to cover the Stadium Series in which the New Jersey Devils take on the Philadelphia Flyers. Won't go into great detail, but unfortunately, there was some miscommunication in terms of my credentialing process, and we couldn't work it out. So I still got some great ideas in store, and I have some other things in the works down the line. So I'm a little disappointed that I won't be covering the Stadium Series, but there's a lot of other great colleagues of mine covering the event. So make sure you check out some of their work, and hopefully I get to cover another big event down the road. So a little disappointed, but once again, I know there's going to be some other opportunities in store. Housekeeping number 2, Vitek Vanecek, he was dealing with a lower body injury and possibly an illness, so he was not accounted for at morning skate. So Akira Schmid was called up from Utica. Now, I know a lot of people are quite fond of Akira Schmid, and honestly, I am too, but just to give you guys some numbers, while he was in Utica, he had a record of 3-5-4. He had a goals against average of 3.58 and a save percentage of .885. So whatever he was doing in Utica, it wasn't really working out. So I don't really have that much anticipation for him. In fact, once Vitek gets healthy again, he's going to be going right back down to Utica. That's my prediction. But nice to see Schmido back on the Devils roster because he is obviously a fan favorite. Now, let's talk about this game for New Jersey, because is it safe to say that they have carried some momentum from their previous matchup against the Carolina Hurricanes? I know I didn't do a post-game recap episode, but I would say that was one of the Devils' best performance against the Hurricanes because they came out on the losing end by a score of 1-0. But the one thing that I liked from the Devils was that they took it into OT. So I said it on social media. I said it in past episodes. Something is better than nothing. And that's the mentality that the Devils have to carry the rest of the way. So whenever the Devils are in the third period and they're in a deadlock, take it into OT so you're at least guaranteed 1 point, because the points are essential for New Jersey. And they picked up 2 big points against the Kraken. So when we look at the Metropolitan Division, the Devils, they are still 8 points behind the Philadelphia Flyers for third in the Metro. So the Flyers are starting to run away in that third spot a little bit. They're on a 4-game winning streak. But when looking at the wild card, the Devils have a better shot at that, in my opinion, because they're only 4 points behind both the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Detroit Red Wings. So we'll definitely keep an eye out for both standings, whether it's the Metro or the wild card, because the Devils are very much in it. When it comes to the Metro, it might be a little difficult for them to catch up with the Rangers and also the Hurricanes, and once again, the Flyers are starting to run away with it. So I think the Devils' best bet from here on out, especially if they continue to be inconsistent, is to go for one of those wild card positions. But they're heading in the right direction. So they've tallied 3 points in their last 2 games. So something better than nothing. And let's see what they could do this evening against the Nashville Predators, a team that has a similar record as them. And there's going to be a familiar face behind the bench in Andrew Burnett. So this matchup is going to be somewhat intriguing for the Devils, because for the first time this season, can they try to sweep a back-to-back? Can they win 2 games in a row back-to-back? That's been a big talking point. It's something they got to fix, because they've been leaving a lot of cheese and lettuce on the table when it comes to dropping back-to-back games. Now, let's talk briefly about my love for the Seattle Kraken, because as many of you know, the Seattle Kraken are my second favorite team in the NHL, but it's for personal reasons, because my mentor is Ever Fitzhugh. He's the radio play-by-play announcer. He has helped me a lot throughout my career, and I met up with him when I flew out to Seattle to cover the Devils and Kraken. It was a lot of fun. He treated me to lunch, and Everett has really helped me a lot in my career. So I kind of had to do Bill Spalding and Ken Danico a little bit dirty, because I was watching it on TV, but I muted the TV and I put up the radio feed for the Kraken so that way I can listen to my mentor and just get some tips and tricks for him. Because as you guys know, I say it in all my intros, I am a college hockey play-by-play announcer. But enough personal stuff. Let's talk about this game for New Jersey. Once again, coming away with a 3-1 victory. So to close off segment one, I will give some brief recaps from each period and my main takeaways. And then in the second segment, I will name some honorable mentions and my 3 stars in the game. And then in the third and final segment, to close it all out, like I do with every post-game recap, I will compare the stats and give the Devils a letter grade. So when looking at the first period, the Devils finally broke their 0-for-23 power play streak. Prior to this matchup, their last 8 or so games, they did not score a power play goal, and it's been a bit of a downhill spiral compared to earlier this year. And a lot of people are wondering, how did the Devils go from best power play in the league to where they're at now? Well, losing Jack Hughes for a significant amount of time, that doesn't really help things. Losing Dougie Hamilton as well, regardless of what you think of him, that doesn't help things either. So the injuries and just the inconsistency of who's out there and who's not out there doesn't really do the Devils any favors. So it's been a bit of a struggle on the man advantage for the Devils. And in this game against the Kraken, they went 1 for 5 in their power play opportunities. But I was just so happy that they finally got one power play goal, and that was thanks to Tyler Toffoli, and he got it in the first period. So it's been a bit of a struggle. But here's the thing. A lot of you are probably wondering, where do the Devils rank in terms of power play numbers in the NHL? Well, this might surprise you. The Devils are still a top 10 power play team in the entire league. Going into this matchup, they were ranked number 9. So despite their 0-for-23 power play goal-less streak, if you would, the Devils are still one of the best power play teams in the entire NHL, according to the numbers. So it just goes to show you how dominant their power play was at the beginning of the year, because the fact that they could put up a goose egg their last 23 or so attempts, it just goes to show you that they had a lot of numbers and a lot of power play points to play with, similar to their win streak last year, if you guys recall. But anyway, it was just nice that Tyler Toffoli netted the power play goal, and that helped the Devils exponentially. But the one thing that I could take from this game is that the Devils turned defense into offense, and that showed at the conclusion of the first period, because they led the shots on goal category 12-7. So they were playing really good in front of their net. Remember, I believe Nico Daws said this post-game recently. He said that the Devils need to play better in front of their net, and I think it starts with the goaltending, and I think it also starts with just clearing the zone and just trying to go back on the offensive attack, and that's exactly what they did in the first period. Then in the second period, they gave Nico Daws an extended rest. What do I mean by that? Well, the Kraken did not get their first shot on Daws until there was like 5 or so minutes remaining in the second period. And the Devils scored 2 more goals during that time in which they did not allow the Kraken to get a shot on Daws. So that was very impressive. Once again, defense turns to offense, and you saw people like Dawson Mercer find the back of the net, and Jack Hughes finally getting his first goal since returning from injury. And then come the third period, I'm sure a lot of Devils fans were sitting on pins and needles, and the Devils did lose the shutout thanks to Will Borgen, but they maintained themselves. Whatever offensive attack the Kraken had, the Devils knew how to snuff them out. They knew how to suppress them, and that's something that we've been missing from the Devils throughout the course of this year, because their defense has been up and down. It's been very inconsistent. There haven't been too many bright spots. Obviously, losing some defensemen, including Brendan Smith, Jonas Siegenthaler, and Dougie Hamilton, doesn't do them any favors. They lost a lot of depth there, but it just shows you, like, they've had to rely on a lot of young players, including Luke Hughes, Shimon Nemeth, and Terry Hataka. Don't get me wrong, I love all 3 of those players, but they shouldn't be playing the minutes that they should be playing, and that's a lot on their shoulders. And similar to what Chico Resch said when he appeared on this show not too long ago, how can you give those guys 5 years experience when they're either 19 or 20 years old? You can't. They really got to try to build off of it. And think Santeri Hataka is like 23, but you get the point. He's still relatively young, but this was quintessential as to what I want to see the Devils play going forward. And they carried that momentum, similar to what I said earlier on in the segment, from the Carolina Hurricanes game, because now they're finding ways to get points on the board because the standings are very tight in both the Metro and the wild card. So these 2 points were essential for the Devils, especially since they tend to struggle on back-to-backs. Now, we're going to transition into some of my 3 stars of the game and also some honorable mentions. But before we do, I want to tell you guys about the Sleeper app. Now, regardless of where the Devils are at in the current standings, I want to remind you that you can win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our #1 choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. You don't just have to participate in daily fantasy hockey. You can also play daily fantasy football, basketball, baseball, college football, all on the Sleeper app. All you have to do is pick whether studs like Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, Shimon the Mets, Nico Hischier will record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in any given game. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Devils fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's Locked On NHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Okay, before I name my 3 stars of the game, first some honorable mentions. So the first honorable mention I want to give is Shimon Nemec, because Shimon Nemec, even though he didn't walk away with a single point in this game, he still made his presence known. So it all started in the first period when he had an open lane to Joey Daccord. And by the way, I think another reason why I like the Seattle Kraken is because Joey Daccord, he's an ASU alum, so forks up. And as you guys know, I currently go to Arizona State studying sports journalism, but digressing a little bit. In the first period, we saw Shimon Nemec. He had a point-blank shot attempt on Joey Daccord. Now, Daccord did make the save, but I think the main takeaway is that we saw the skating ability of Nemec on full display. Like, this kid is very talented. So you see a guy that's not afraid to join in on the rush. You see a guy that's not afraid to look for his own shot. And we all knew that from Shimon Nemec because Nemec is an offensive-minded defenseman. So even though he didn't score on that point-blank attempt that he had on Daccord, it still shows what he is capable of doing. So small snippet, but I think it could definitely snowball into something bigger. And another thing I want to give Nemec credit for is that he did technically score a power play goal for New Jersey in the second period. But the problem was that Erik Haula did clip Joey Daccord a little bit, and Haula knew it right away. His head was down. He knew that the Kraken were going to challenge that, and the goal was going to get waved off. But it was still a phenomenal beauty of a shot from Shimon Nemec. So was he robbed just a tad bit? I would say so, but it was the correct call. And I know Daccord might have sold it a little bit, but the facts are there, which is Haula clipped him with his skates and he put his head down and it was just like, oh man, I knew it. He knew it right away. So, and the referees didn't take long to look at the review and they said, yep, goalie interference, but still a decent showing from Shimon Nemec and his capabilities. So unfortunately, he didn't get the power play goal, but you might not be big on moral victories. That goal still counts in a lot of Devils fans' hearts. Now, speaking Devils fans' hearts, let's talk about Santeri Hataka, a guy I've been very high on ever since the Devils called him up. So what more can we say about Santeri Hataka? He got the secondary assist on Dawson Mercer's goal because Dawson Mercer cleaned up the mess in front, courtesy of Timo Meier. But Santeri Hataka, 7 games played, 2 assists, 2 points, and a plus-minus of +7. So when Hataka is on the rink, the Devils are a better team. And when it comes to the Devils defensemen, obviously we rave about Shimon Nemec, we rave about Luke Hughes because they're offensive-minded defensemen and they're very exciting to watch. They're electrifying and it's very exciting when they get involved in the rush or whatever the case might be. But for Santeri Hataka, he knows how to assert himself physically. He knows how to place himself. He knows how to skate. And by the way, I have an article about him and an interview I conducted over the summer during development camp in the works for Pucks and Pitchforks. So be on the lookout for that. I'll post that on my social media once it goes live. But Santeri Hataka has just been entertaining to watch. And when Brendan Smith or Jonas Siegenthaler return to the Devils, and by the way, I think Smith is very close to returning. He was joining the Devils practice the last few days, but he's just not quite there yet, but he's very close. It's definitely going to be a tough decision for Lindy Ruff at what he can do with Santeri Hatakka. Now, personally, I would say for the time being, why don't you make Smith a forward? Because I think Smith is a better forward than he is a defenseman, and leave Hatakka there, and maybe good things will happen. But that's just my personal opinion, and I know you're going to have to make a tough decision, but I really like what Hatakka has brought to the Devils. He has made a good impact. And now my third honorable mention is Dawson Mercer, because Merce Dog, he did what he normally did, which was Timo Meier, clear lane, got a shot attempt on Joey Daccord. Daccord couldn't control the loose change, and who was there to pick it up? It was Mercer. Yo, he a dog for real, for shizzle. So Merce Dog just cleaning up the mess. Kind of reminds me of what Timo Meier did a lot last year, but still Mercer getting his 15th goal of the season and Timo Meier racking up his 20th point. It was a good tandem to watch. And don't forget Santeri Hatakka getting the secondary assist on that. Now, my third star of the game belongs to Tyler Toffoli because he continues to lead the Devils in the goals category. And he was the prime reason as to why the party got started, because he got the game-winning goal in period number 1 on the power play. And like I said, this well for the Devils on the power play, it has run its course. It's run very dry. And the Devils just need one power play to go their way, because it's similar to like being on a losing streak. It just takes one win to snap you out of it. And that's what Tyler Toffoli did on the man advantage. Now, were the Devils better down the road of this game when they were given more power play opportunities? Not exactly, because the Seattle Kraken a lot of times denied them zone entry, but still just getting that power play goal, I think that's going to do wonders for the Devils, because they're still a top 10 power play team in the entire league. And I think hopefully they can build off of that. So Tyler Toffoli, just a phenomenal outing once again. And speaking of which, I thought Jack Hughes was going to center off to him on Jack Hughes' goal back in period number 2. But anyway, I'll get to that momentarily. Let's talk about Nico Daws and what Jack Hughes said post-game. So Daws saw 28 shots and he saved 27 of them. So it was a phenomenal outing for Nico Daws, and the Devils did a good job of protecting him in front. But something interesting happened post-game. Jack Hughes was quoted to say, when you get the saves, it's much easier to win. Now, was he throwing shade at Vitek Vanacek? Was he throwing shade at the goaltending in general? Was he just verbalizing? Like, what was Jack Hughes hinting at? Well, before I give my opinion, Jack Hughes did further explain what he meant during the media availability scrum. He was quoted to say, I think Daws played really well. Vitek played really well in Carolina. You get goaltending like that the last 2 games, it shows the results. He did a really good job tonight, and we are happy with how he played. So I don't think he was necessarily throwing shade at Vitek. Now, I wouldn't put it past Jack to do so in the future or maybe the past, and I missed it, because Jack Hughes is the same person that said during exit interviews that you can't just say that you want to re-sign with New Jersey. You got to get the job done. Now, who was he throwing shade to? Most likely, and I'm no Sherlock Holmes, but it was Jesper Bratt, because Jesper Bratt was talking about for like a full year that he wanted to re-sign with New Jersey, but still no deal came into fruition. And remember, in summer 2022, right before the arbitration hearing was set to take place, Jesper Bratt re-signed a 1-year deal, but he was eligible to re-sign in January 2023. And he was still talking about how he wanted to stay in New Jersey. And Jack Hughes, just during exit interviews, and I was there, I was present, I remember him talking about it, and I've talked about it on this show. He just said, like, you can't just say you want to remain in New Jersey. You got to get the deal done. And all fingers pointed to Jesper Bratt, because Eric Hollis said he was trying to work out a new deal. Timo Meier never explicitly said he wanted to remain in New Jersey, but we had a good feeling that he was going to resign. But it just goes to show you that Jack Hughes has no problem speaking his mind, and Tom Fitzgerald has acknowledged that to the media as well, and that's why he likes Jack so much. He tells it as it is. But I think in this case, just given the context and his further explanation post-game, I don't think Jack was throwing shade at Vitek. I think he was just saying a general fact, which is when you get those crucial saves, good things will happen, because that's been a big issue for the Devils throughout their goaltending, because it's just like sometimes they don't make the crucial saves. Yes, they're left out to dry. But it's just like, if you're a good goalie, you got to make those saves in order to keep your team above water. But that's just my 2-cent opinion on as to what Jack Hughes said post-game. But it shouldn't take away from the fact that Nico Daws went a hell of a job in between the pipes, and that's exactly what the Devils needed. And now, my first star, speaking of the Devil, it's Jack Hughes, because this was sort of a coming out party for Jack, because this was the first time that he saw himself in the score sheet since returning from injury. So he walked away with a goal and he walked away with an assist. So he got the secondary assist on Tyler Toffoli's power play goal. And this is something I talked about a few episodes as well. It just seems like the offense is flowing much better with Jack Hughes added to the lineup, and that was to be expected. And it should be no surprise that Jack Hughes played a helping hand as to how the Devils scored their first power play goal in like ages. And I also added, like, it doesn't matter if it's 5-on-5 or power play, Jack Hughes just knows how to make the team better, and the offense looks a lot more polished when he's out there. And then his goal, man, like, did anyone else get deja vu to the first home opener in which he scored on the Detroit Red Wings short side on Billy Husso? It was the same exact play in which he just banked his shot attempt off the helmet, this time of Joey Daccord. So Jack Hughes, he called bank, and the bank responded promptly. So that was a sweet goal. And at first glance, I thought he was going to center off Tyler Toffoli because Toffoli had an open lane, and that's what I was alluding to a few minutes ago. But Jack is just a wizard with a puck. So welcome back officially, Jack Hughes. You can't keep him out of the score sheet forever. It was bound to happen. And the fact that he picked up 2 points in his third game back, I think it shows you what he's capable of doing down the road. So in 35 game appearances, he has 16 goals, 31 assists for a grand total of 47 points. Obviously, more than a point per game player. So I think his hard chances are pretty slim to none, but he can still make a run at just trying to get the Devils back into the playoffs, and maybe that'll help his case just a little bit and maybe give him a good narrative heading into next season. But Jack Hughes is obviously my first star of the game. Now, I'm going to compare the stats and give the Devils a letter grade momentarily, but before we continue, let me tell you guys about FanDuel. So get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. So just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. Hopefully my Los Angeles Lakers turn it around. As you guys know, big LeBron James fan, but FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the National Basketball Association. Okay, let's compare the stats, give the Devils a letter grade, and get out of here. Shots on goal differential, 37-28 in favor of the Devils. Face-off percentage, 60% to 40% in favor of the Devils. And like I said, it seems like the Devils are continuing their trend of leading the face-off department yet again. There was a lot of question about it for obvious reasons, but heading back in the right direction. Power play. Devils were 1 for 5. Kraken were 0 for 3. So good job by the penalty killers for New Jersey. Hits, 25-16 in favor of the Kraken. Block shots, 18-13 in favor of the Devils. Giveaways, 16-2 in favor of the Devils. Takeaways, Devils led that department 10-8. So they didn't walk away with a shutout, but like I said in the first segment, this was just the epitome of a great outing for the Devils, both offensively and defensively, and their goalie put up a great effort as well. And I think the Devils asserted themselves early. They maintained it, and they never looked back. So I think I would be foolish not to give the Devils an A in this sort of matchup. And they redeemed themselves because they lost in OT to the Carolina Hurricanes, a game in which I know they thought they should have won because they put up one hell of a dogfight against the Hurricanes. And a lot of people were doubting them. A lot of people were doubting Vitek Vanecek, including myself, because I was wondering why Vitek Vanecek was going out there, especially with how he played against the Avalanche. But digressing a little bit, the Devils played a very great game in this one. It wasn't perfect because they didn't get the shutout, but it shouldn't take away from the fact that they put up a really good fight. So let me know what you guys thought of the game, and also what did you think of Jack Hughes' comments? What are your opinions on what he said, and how did you take them? I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts, so leave a comment down below. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on podcast streaming service, hit me up on my personal X app, TreyMatt4, and the show's X page app at Locked On Devils. As for today's episode, that's all the time I have for you. So continue to stay safe. Have a wonderful day in New Jersey. Go Devils. I'll catch you guys next episode. Thanks for listening once again. And by the way, even though I'm not covering the Stadium Series, I might have a special guest lined up to help preview it.